And the only way we get anything of any significance done in this country is to find those who may not see things the same way that we do, who may have a different perspective, but with whom we begin with the premise that they love this country every bit as much as we do. They're just as American, just as Texan, just as human as any of us. And there's got to be a way to find some common ground and some consensus and get the work done. And we may have to decide that we will not allow the perfect to become the enemy of the good. But if we can make things better, it is incumbent upon us to do so. And though white Americans and black Americans use illegal drugs in the same degree, at the same levels, at the same rate, it is not white Americans, by and large, who are serving that time behind bars. And I just met somebody who had previously worked in the district attorney's office and talked about a plea agreement on which he worked that resulted in a young man from this community spending 45 years behind bars for a marijuana non-violent drug offense.
They did 45 years. What they do?
Imagine what that person could be doing on the other side of those bars. The job that he could hold, the business that he could create, the novel that he might otherwise write, the family he would raise, the quality of life that he would improve for everyone here in this room, and by extension this community, this state, and this country. There is so much left for us to do, and it won't happen unless we call it out. It will not happen unless we have the courage of our convictions and are willing to follow the leaders, no matter how young, no matter how old, no matter how black, no matter how white, who are willing to do the work and bring people together despite the small differences that would otherwise separate us, whether those are race or gender or orientation or geography or country of origin or anything else. None of that stuff matters right now. What matters is all of us getting together, getting after it, helping this country right now do the right thing at the moment that she needs us the most. Every child in this community has the chance to go to a world-class public school, regardless of what side of the tracks you live on. You are owed a teacher in that classroom who's going to give everything she or he can to your kids to spark that lifelong love of learning that is not going to stop them in whatever it is that they are supposed to do in their lives. And as some have reminded me in meetings that we've had along the way, it's a lot more helpful if those teachers look like the kids and the community in which they are teaching, that those teachers are also paid a living wage, and the classrooms in which they work. The classrooms in which they work have the resources to make sure that the kids are focused on the education, not the lack of air conditioning, not the fact that there are 40 other kids in that classroom at the same time. We talk about giving every young person in this state a chance. It begins with great public schools, great public school teachers, the nurses, the therapists, the administrators, the principals that make it happen. And when we have an administration and a junior senator that wants to take your hard-earned tax dollars, turn them into vouchers, send them to private schools away from those public school classrooms, you understand the challenge that we have right now and the leadership that is demanded from us to answer to it. So many children are dying who don't even make the headlines in the newspapers, who aren't the lead item on the nightly news. It has become so numbingly familiar that it has failed to engage our conscience and to ensure that we act. I've been in Congress for 5 years so far, and we have had 0 debates and discussions on gun violence and gun safety. The Centers for Disease Control is prohibited by law from studying gun violence as though we are afraid of what that study might show us, of what the facts might compel us to do. Imagine the Surgeon General 40 years ago being prevented from studying tobacco and its connection to lung cancer and the hundreds of thousands of Americans who are dying as a consequence. That's exactly what we're doing in this country. More than 30,000 of our fellow Americans every single year will lose their lives due to gun violence. This happens in no other country on the planet. And so either there is something uniquely evil and wrong and bad about us as Americans, or there is an opportunity that we have before us to make policy and follow the leadership, even if it is, and maybe especially if it is, provided by an 11-year-old girl, or high school students, or young people who are not going to accept prayers and thoughts as an answer to the lives of we are going to be the country that decides we are going to leave that paranoia, that fear, that anxiety, that hatred, and that bigotry behind, and get after the big aspirational work before us, making sure that everyone who needs to see a doctor or a therapist or get life-saving medication is able to do that. Not as a function of luck or circumstance or privilege, but something that is guaranteed that they can depend on, because again, the benefit is not just for that person who receives health care, it is for all of us, given what that person is now able to do in their lives. And I say this in a state that now leads the developed world in the rate of maternal mortality. A state that where if you are an African American woman, you are 3 times more likely to die than you are if you are a white woman in this state. And when I was talking to the leaders in Arlington, Texas and Desoto, Texas, they tell me, listen, going to a community health clinic or a family planning clinic, if one even exists in your part of the state anymore, now that we've closed down a quarter of them, to get a cervical cancer screening or family planning help, or just to see a provider who will make the life or death difference for you or someone in your family is really hard to do when you can't catch a bus, because there is no bus here. When you don't have paid family leave, so you can take some time away from your minimum wage jobs that you work to put food on the table, a roof over your kid's head, and give them a chance and investment in their future. We are the least insured state in the country, and there are some very mortal consequences distributed unevenly in this state because of that. So we have to be the ones. Texas, they won't see it coming from us, that leads this country in doing the right thing for everybody, regardless of who they are or where they are. That I learned serving in Congress on the House Veterans Affairs Committee. This is not just a problem in El Paso. This is a problem across the country, and there are certain veterans, including those who have what are known as bad paper discharges, who before today could not get into the VA at all. Imagine this: you served in Korea, in Vietnam, in the Persian Gulf, in Afghanistan, diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, or traumatic brain injury, or military sexual trauma, or whatever the signature wounds and conditions of service and combat are, and are unable to get the care that you need, and I would argue that you earned by putting your life on the line. That was US law until last week, because a year ago, almost to the day, March 22nd, 2017, we write a bill called the Honor Our Commitment Act that will open up mental health care to those veterans who have an other than honorable discharge. Listen, the quality of your discharge should have some bearing on what you're able to get going forward. There should be some consequences, in other words, for your behavior and your actions, but those consequences should not include your life, because those veterans who have an other than honorable discharge were taking their lives at twice the rate of the general veterans population. So we wrote a bill, and then we compromised on the bill. It's a dirty word in Washington, but to be able to get a Republican to join us on the bill in an institution whose majority are Republicans. We were able to get it passed in December, but the way our democracy works, it's not enough to get it passed in the House. You got to get it passed in the Senate, and you got to get the president to sign it into law. So we worked the phones, the personal conversations, called the senators we knew, called the senators we had not yet met, made the case for why making this additional investment in veterans is going to pay off. And I'm proud to tell you, 1 year to the day, March 22nd, 2018, this passed both houses of Congress and was signed into law by our president. We're now going to be saving lives that we would otherwise lose.